And welcome to Glitch Point. We are still settled in the nice December sea of, I don't know, Christmas post. So,
Yeah, that weird week between the New Year and
yeah,
Christmas.
people don't really know what's going to happen. Everyone's kind of settling with their purchases that they've made. People are just happy they have consoles, if that. Actually, this leads me directly into my question for you is now our fine friend Spencer here has both consoles.
I am
He's
living the dream.
He's living the dream. He has the full set. It's very beautiful looking. But now that you've had the chance, what do you have recollections, thoughts?
I lucked out. Walmart was great, and they had consoles available, and mine came in the mail yesterday. And right out the box, I mean, Xbox had way better of an unboxing experience for anybody who would care. Like, it was way cooler the way it let the box opened up, and which is a small detail, but it just felt cooler to open that one where the PS5 was just like, here's a box, which is fine. That console was huge. It's kind of hard to do fancy stuff with a big ass thing. Xbox had the advantage of they have a cube. Um, but as someone who's been using the PS5 for a while and like absolutely loving it, especially the controller, um, I gotta say that Xbox made like they made every part of gaming better except like the next gen experience. And I mean that's something that we've been kind of talking about a little bit, but like yeah, I've finally got to experience quick resume on my own time, which for one I was actually amazed because I have nothing installed on the internal hard drive yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so because I have an Xbox One, so I put everything on my external Xbox One hard drive and then plugged it in via USB, so that way it was like instant. I had all my games ready to go,
Oh, you didn't get
and
the Seagate, the slotted hard drive
no,
in the
not yet.
back,
I
because
don't
that's
think I'll need it soon.
I no, but I think it's I forget what protocol the port is, but it's a pretty fast transfer.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty sure they said it's the same. Like it
Is
should
it
match.
SATA though? I think it's a SATA
Yeah,
connection,
or
right?
no, because I'm pretty sure it plugs directly into the motherboard.
Does it play? Oh, okay.
That's why it's such a weird proprietary port. Um,
Yeah. So it's supposed to be. I mean, like when I looked it up, it was supposed to be just as fast or
yeah, which
comparable to the internal drive.
I might get it at some point. I don't know because well, actually I don't know because I thought that the only way to get quick resume and faster load times was to use the internal hard drive or the Seagate thing. But I'm using an external USB 3.0 and quick resume works on all of the games on there and the load times are fucking insane. I don't
Yeah.
know how. Like I know they have Xbox Velocity Architecture, whatever the hell buzzwords those mean, but I was blown away that they're able to get fast load times like this, and I don't know if it's like doing some weird copy that I didn't notice. I'll have to check again, but I'm pretty sure that these are just Xbox One games on my hard drive, which they suggest you do if you have Xbox One games to just put them on the external.
I'm sure it
Um,
does. Like we've talked before, I'm sure it does like uploading for the games that you're currently using, or especially the games like whatever the quick resume needs to quick resume. It probably puts it in a certain part of
oh
memory or
yeah,
RAM, and then
for sure.
allows you to access that. But you're actually breaching on one of my biggest complaints about the Xbox Series X, which is I don't like their management system of what is on the external hard drive and what's not on the external hard drive, and like also being able to know where. So like if you need more room and you don't know if you need more room on the internal hard drive or the external hard drive. It depends what the update is for the game. So like if you had put Destiny on the internal and you thought it was on the external, it doesn't tell you, so you can erase
So
stuff on the external and it won't help you at all, and then like it's just this.
so I know it I'm wondering because I don't have the Seagate expansion, but
Oh
it does
yeah.
do that on the USB one. So like I can
Really?
filter all of my games. I can just say, tell me what's on the hard drive or tell me
Why
what's
won't
on my internal. But yeah, I don't know if I don't
Has
have a
there been
Seagate,
an
so I don't
update
know.
recently? Because
So that's been
that's
on the Xbox One for years in
no,
terms
I
of
know, but
external.
why would they negate their proprietary partnership with Seagate and not allow that technology? That seems
Yeah, I don't know. I'm surprised that they did not because they have that filter system. So that's
It
really
is
strange.
super annoying. It's like because there's the problem with like a lot of these games is they're all updating right now because they're trying to become 4K compliant and all this other stuff and like
Yeah.
so you're constantly getting updates and then now I have an extended drive and I have to figure out what to delete to make sure that the update fits and where and like there's no indication at all. And I'm like, maybe I could be a stupid user, but I don't think I am. I don't
I don't know.
know.
Next time I'm over, I can try to see or just show you how I filter mine. But I wouldn't also be surprised if they don't, because they're like, they could be thinking of like it's an expansion to the internal, not necessarily an external, because mine is a direct, like it is not in the console, but this is plugging into the.
Okay.
It's very strange, but they should be able. You should be able to filter what's on those cards, because I mean, for hardcore rich users, they might have multiple of those cards that they can plug like a memory card in and be like, oh, now I have this game installed.
Well, fine. If it's raid, then treat it like raid, right? Like why
Oh, true.
it should be treated as one drive. And that's actually what I thought it was going to be where it doesn't matter where the update like, it's virtually one drive, so if a game needs to update it has enough space on both like and maybe it's the transfer rate. They're worried about the transfer rate between the updated data and then also fragmentation and all this other stuff. I don't know how raid really works under the hood. I haven't done enough research, but it was kind of annoying that it wasn't treated as raid and like
Okay, so that is weird.
yeah, and I was like, what is going on here? And I have to imagine it's just the locality of the data, right? Because if a game has an update, it needs to be locally close to so that so that when it grabs the data, it can put enough in the RAM,
Yeah.
locally grab the amount of data it needs from the hard drive, so it's just one lookup. And I'm sure it's cache friendly stuff and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it totally does not respect the OneDrive
That's
idiom or idea that I thought they were going to.
that's annoying. Yeah, I'll send like a quick video after this of like how I filter my external and see if that even works for you, because that is annoying. And I also am like, now that I know Quick Resume works on Xbox One titles via a USB drive, I don't know if I'm gonna get that thing, because I used a so I have a 2 terabyte external, which is slow storage, I guess you could say, but it's working with Quick Resume, and then a one
Yeah.
terabyte internal, which that's exactly what I had on my Xbox One X. And I every once in a while I would like cap out and it'd be like, oh, you don't have enough room, but then I'd be like, well, I don't have to have this game installed, and like especially for Series S and X games, I don't know if I'm ever gonna need more than the terabyte. I mean, I'd like to not have to uninstall games, but now that Xbox is so like they want their ecosystem to seem to last forever, I'm not really worried about uninstalling a game. There's a couple like I have um what's it called? Mickey's Castle of Illusion remake. That's not
Okay.
you can't buy that game anymore on the store. I'm worried if I uninstall it I can't get back. So I'm just going to keep it installed forever. But
But I mean, this comes into a totally different argument of ownership and what does that
yeah.
mean? And like, if you actually like contacted them and say, "Hey, I have bought this license in the past," I'm sure you could. They have to hold it somewhere, right?
Well, see that this is my question, and I think we've never, because the PS3 and the Xbox 360 servers are still open, so we've never dealt with the console or any service in which the digital rights servers are going down. I don't know what they're gonna do, because like the 360 is starting to sunset their servers, and they announced that Xbox or that Halo is not going to have their online servers. So, but at the same time, I'm wondering if maybe the way they've architected Xbox Live and the Xbox Store, that the 360 will never officially die. Like I can't go to my original Xbox and buy games off the store, but I can on my 360, and I'm wondering if the 360 will always be able to do that, or if there will be a day in which they say you can't. Which yes, they have backwards compatibility, but not all of the games. So I'm wondering if either A, they never remove those servers and they just tie them in with whatever servers we have now, or B, there's a point in which you can't buy like Super Meat Boy on the 360 ever again, or C, they just like fire sale, everything's free, and you just have like a month or two to download everything.
Well, I'm
Doubt
sure
that'll
that
happen.
there probably won't be hosting for it, but I'm sure they will capture an image of the server in its entirety and store it
True.
somewhere. I mean, I just can't imagine. And also just for historical reasons. And what if the game, like, they might take it off and like maybe they want to bring it back? It's out there. It's never going to go away. I mean, like, I don't think we're even in the era where anybody's going to fully destroy data. Now, whether you as a consumer can get it again, that's a whole, whole different
Yeah,
story.
that's what I'm wondering. Because,
Yeah.
like, I mean, yeah, like I mentioned, Castle of Illusion was published by Disney, and it's a remake of
Yeah.
the Genesis game. You just can't get that on the store anymore. I'm pretty sure if I uninstall it, it will come up as my, like, owned game. I just can't go search for it on the store, or I can, and it'll say unavailable. But PT is another example. You can't
Yeah.
get that on a PS4 anymore, or ever.
Well,
So
you could get it on a PS5 for a little while.
you
So
could. You're right. You could. So like, yeah, the
it's
files
just
are
out
still
there.
there, and that's what
Yeah.
pisses me off. Someone's fucking it's somewhere. Why can't you just let people play the damn thing? But
Well, I think
whatever.
that's a unique
It is.
example though, because
The
it
game
was a game that
canceled, and
yeah, it was canceled, and I don't think that that's fair to the company that they never made the game, so it's a
yeah.
demo.
But it's weird. So I mean, as someone who collects physical stuff, I definitely, when the Xbox One started to go towards the digital route, I'm like, okay, am I gonna have to get to a point where I have like 9 hard drives and all of them are marked with all the games I have installed? And I don't, now that Xbox seems so future forward thinking, I don't know we're ever gonna get to that point. And
Well,
I wonder if they're just gonna get to this great point where we never lose our, like, Steam. I'm never gonna lose my Steam digital rights. Well, that's not true, but if the servers never go down, whatever, and I don't think they ever will in terms of my lifetime, but
I honestly think that they're missing out on an opportunity, especially since with the 360 they chose to do uh, was it the Xbox One? When did they start to choose to do emulation for past games? I think that was the 360, right? They
yeah,
emulate
yeah.
on
360
the
backwards
360. Okay.
compatibility is an emulator.
It was an emulator. So, but that's just saying that now there is a software version of all those games, which means they're easily distributed at this point. And I really don't understand why, as you say, they don't just dump all of them as availability, especially because they're doing online content and cloud streaming. It's like, why don't you just dump them all on the goddamn cloud server and say, have a field day? Go ahead. Here's our collection. And I understand there's a lot of rights and
Yeah, it's all the
companies.
publishers, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I honestly I don't see why people wouldn't want to make money on their old games. I don't think it would be very hard to. I mean, look at GOG. GOG has been doing this for a while, where they've been searching down old publishers and there are stories where they've had troubles contacting anyone because these companies have been dissolved. And fine, those don't show up, but I guarantee you, there's more that would be able to be figured out than wouldn't.
Yeah, and I know that, I mean, they've talked a little bit about like why some games will never be backwards compatible. And yeah, if a company's dissolved, it's like because Xbox went the, well, yeah, it's an emulator.
Trying, dude. They're not even trying.
I mean,
Some games. Okay, I think there's only one, and I was excited to see it. There was only one regular Xbox game on Game Pass, and you did say there were more on the store, which I didn't
yeah,
search for.
I think there's
but
like 20 or something.
there should be like hundreds, dude. I honestly think that people that made those games, and if somebody contacted you and you have an ability to make money at this stage in your, it's like, why not? Why wouldn't it? Like, oh, sorry, I don't want to make money on a game I already created.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's like there's 3 things, which is, yeah, there's the companies dissolve, which is a small fraction. I mean, most of the time, even if a company's dissolved, someone owns the rights to those games.
Yeah, those individuals. Yeah.
The second one, which is not a common one, but it's getting more common, especially in the sports games, which is like some publishers own the rights to the franchise and the game, but not the right to sell the game because of like music. So like none of the Madden games can be resold right now because the music license.
Crazy
Alan Wake.
Taxi.
Crazy Taxi. Alan Wake can't because they don't own
Alan
the rights
Wake?
to the music. Yeah, I don't know why. But I think they paid like the composer or whoever made the music like a 10-year deal thinking, whatever, it's long enough to get the game out, and now they can't.
I just think
that they undid that. I don't know. I think they got the rights back. There is a point where Alan Wake was not on digital stores. And then the third one is, yeah, I think they tried really hard with the 360 because every time they have to do a backwards compatible game, it does cost Microsoft a good amount of money to get the QA to make sure that the game runs on the emulator and get it on the store and all that stuff. So I
That's what
think
I'm
that
saying, though. They've been doing backwards emulation for a while. So, yes, of course, this is a new console, new hardware, but at least 90% of the code's there. Then they just have to make sure it runs on the new hardware.
yeah, and
And
I
it's cloud based. So, like, yeah, which is
yeah,
also the new hardware now. It's all switching over. So, I suppose that's the same thing. But I don't know. I just think that there's an advantage here. And I feel like PlayStation does this a lot more, or they did for a long time. And Xbox just seems to be missing out. I don't know.
yeah, I mean Xbox is they have this history of they I mean, I applaud them for what they've done to backwards compatibility, and there's a little bit more on that I can get to, but they always just they just never finish it through. Like the 360, not all original games were available through their emulator because they just stopped at some point. And then we saw that with this gen of like they had a lot of 360 games and then like only a little bit of original because it was kind of more of a marketing thing of like, hey, look, we can play original games, but no one there's a very small fraction of our user base and gaming community that really gives a shit. Like, yeah, we care because we played those games and we used to have them. And then for
Yeah.
me, it's like I don't care because I have them and I have the original hardware. So it's like I don't really need the new one. But I think they just look at how much it's going to cost to pay those Q&A people, to pay the people to get the legal stuff, and then they're like, it's just not going to sell consoles,
Oh yeah,
which
because
that's
just
totally valid.
fully buying out companies for billions of dollars. That's better.
Yeah. But one thing that I'm glad that they did, and this was very forward thinking, which is they put more work into the emulator than they did to the games. So that way, when a publisher does decide, yes, you can have our game, they just make it so much better. Like they worked on making sure that the developers didn't need to do much to get upscaled 4K to work and assets to be up to 4K. And then they have auto HDR. So there's a lot of backwards compatible games that now
Yeah,
have HDR
which is really
so
cool.
and then the other thing, which this was such an odd little thing, which is I've been wanting to play Skyrim for a while again, even though I have all these games to play. Something about Skyrim, I'm like, I just want to go back and play it. And I didn't want to play it because I played it on the 360 and it ran at like shit frame rate, but I was young enough to not give a shit. And I saw that it still ran at 30 barely on an Xbox One, so I was like, eh. And I don't want to play on PC right now. But I saw that there was an uncapped mod, like an uncapped FPS mod you could get on the Xbox, but it was made like 4 or 5 years ago, and it sucks because
What
the
do you mean
console.
by mod on the Xbox?
So
Do you mean
the Bethesda supports user-created mods on Fallout 4
really?
and Skyrim. Yeah,
Oh, how does that even work?
it's just a mod
It,
store, and you download it and enable it.
it's within the game itself, or
Yeah,
like is it downloadable content?
no, it's like in the game itself. It's like a little tab.
Interesting. I didn't
It's
know
pretty
that. That's
cool.
really cool. Yeah,
And this
I bet that's amazing actually.
Yeah, and the story for this mod is weird because it was made for the Xbox One, and I think someone was like, I know how to do it, but I don't know if it'll work. And it did not, because if you uncap it on an Xbox One, it runs like dog shit. And then they just left it there, which it's a mod, so it doesn't really matter. But then when the Series X came out with backwards compatibility, people were like, I wonder if this works now. And it does. It literally like without any of Bethesda's help, from my knowledge, because of the way the Xbox Series X uses backwards compatibility and allows the 360 game to use the power of the Series X if it so chooses, the
Yeah,
uncapped mod was able to tap into the Series X, and now I'm playing Skyrim at 60 with
that's
auto
awesome.
HDR. Yeah, and I'm like, and now I'm playing Skyrim rather than any new game. It's amazing.
But I mean, like, wouldn't it be nice if, especially with after the purchase, if every single one of Bethesda's games was dumped onto the store
Oh yeah,
all the way
of
back,
course.
like even their own PC only games somehow? Like, I think people would be really excited about that. I think they would generate a lot of love for Xbox in the way that they're handling their new acquisitions. I think they're missing out on something. I honestly do. I want to play all the Fallout. I want to play all the Elder Scrolls. All
Yeah,
the
and
way back.
I mean going all the way back, that's difficult. Like, I mean, Elder Scrolls 1 through 3 were DOS games, so I don't know if that's ever going to be doable.
But GOG
And
does it. Yes, it's a console. It's a big difference. But I feel like GOG only exists because nobody else is doing this.
oh, for sure. Yeah, GOG has that like they definitely have a niche in the market, and I'm glad that they have it. It would be neat if I could play Elder Scrolls Arena on my Xbox. How? I have no fucking idea. But Yeah, that would be cool. But I mean, going off of that, for ones that are possible, Morrowind
Yeah,
and Oblivion are both backwards compatible on the Xbox One, and I think both run at 4K now with auto HDR, which is like the blows my
it,
mind that they made a Xbox original game run at 4K HDR on a brand new console.
but you can't. Can you play it on the Xbox Series S or
Yes.
X? You can.
Yeah,
Oh,
I could
I
literally
didn't know
like
that.
pull
That's
Morrowind
really
off of my shelf, which I have
that's
it,
really
and just plug it
cool.
in and go, which is amazing.
What about all the Fallouts? Are all the Fallouts there too? Like, do you have?
Fallout, yeah, every Bethesda Fallout is.
Okay, so I am wrong then. Never mind.
It's
I,
just
I
not the
really,
ones that not the ones made by Interplay, which are PC
yeah.
isometric games. And but yeah, Fallout 3 also 4K HDR.
Oh, that's so cool.
The only thing is that they just haven't upped the frame rate on them, from my knowledge. But that's an engine limitation. Like if Bethesda, though they're not going to update a 10, 15-year-old game, but the only reason Skyrim runs at 60 is because some mod is working on it, which is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. The modding thing blows me away. I've been
I
waiting for
know.
something like that for a long time because it's something that the PC community holds over, console gamers. But
Yep.
and I love both. Obviously PC games are great as well as console. But yeah, I always thought that what's the difference, right? Why can't we have this, on consoles? It
Yeah, I
never
mean
made sense.
it just came down to like how you enable the mods, because on most PC mods it's like an external client, or you're editing the game files, which on console you don't have access to, which like yes, you could allow the console to have access, but that's a dangerous game to give to casual people.
Yeah.
So I mean, and Bethesda's answer was we're gonna make our own pipeline that's built into the game, which I mean they were given shit about it because like some of the mods you had to pay for, which it was up to the creator if they wanted to make money off the mod, which whatever. But most of them are free and some of them are pretty cool. I don't know how you develop them. I'm imagining that you make a PC mod and then you go through
Yeah.
some sort of pipeline to get it onto the console version, because I read into how the uncapped works, and the way the uncapped mod works on Xbox is it edits an ini file, which
Hmm.
you had to restart the game in order to get it to work. Which okay, and then this is the second part that was like, oh my god, awesome. Which is not only did this mod work, but they made it because it enables or it changes in any file. If you enable the mod, restart the game, and then reboot the game and disable the mod is still there, and that's important because on Xbox or in Skyrim, if you have a mod enabled, you do not unlock achievements.
Oh.
So with this mod, if you do that, you can unlock achievements and have the 60 FPS mod enabled, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. A lot of these though they should just make canon, which is I don't think the right word, but for a lot of these they should just absorb the mod and make it part of the game.
Oh, I
Because like
know.
it's just like some of these, and I always felt that some of these like really simple mods that are just what people want. It's like just incorporate it into the game. The code's is right there, And of course I'm not fully fleshed on how mods work. I would imagine it's some sort of plugin base where or some sort of editing of the code that's there, pre-processing or something. I don't know. How do
Yeah, I
mods
mean,
work?
so I mean, yeah, I've never been really heavily into mods, and I mean, there's a good amount of mods that are just like asset changes. So you change the PNG, or like you throw in some more PNGs. Like I remember there was like a blood mod I helped my younger brother install on Skyrim, which just like it just changed the textures of the blood to be higher res, which like oh that's
But it's
nothing.
not
The engine
changing
can
the
handle that.
stored textures. It's probably changing the textures in memory, right?
Yeah, it's changing them on disk. Which
So
like yeah,
whatever
those
whatever
files are
gets
there.
loaded into memory probably,
Exactly.
yeah, it alters whatever's in memory, I would imagine.
Um,
Because then if you don't choose to have the mod, the game doesn't change.
Yeah, and then I
Uh,
think the other thing is the engine needs to be moddable. Like a lot of game engines are not moddable, but the Creation engine has been a modding safe haven for years and years and years. So in terms of like an ini file, some engines they don't decide to cap the frame rate via the ini file. They just cap it in their frame rate controller, which is in a CPP file. But Bethesda has been, and I think they did this also on Fallout 3, which is they had like you could change any file to tell the engine how many threads to use, which was like a compatibility issue on new consoles. So I'm imagining there's some bool or an int that's just sitting in any file that says use uncapped, and then you just set that to 0 and that's your mod. Granted, it would be above 60 FPS if there wasn't any VSync on consoles, but it's locked at 60 because of VSync.
Yeah,
But
I would imagine that probably up to this point, and I'm sure with virtualization and being able to encapsulate processes and stuff, that didn't really exist as much as it does right now. And I'm sure that basically using things like Docker or whatever, self-contained applications where they weren't able to infect the outer architecture, because I remember like a lot of the way you used to soft mod consoles is through game saves files, like
yeah,
back on, and so there was a lot of vulnerability there, and modding, letting people to actually change the game. But I would only imagine, because this is where all computer science goes and all applications are moving towards, are these self-contained applications where they don't actually have access to the operating system itself.
yeah.
They have self-contained resources. So it's probably okay now. I mean, that's the only way I can think of, and especially the way you're describing it, where it's within the game system itself. The modding capabilities. It's not part of Xbox or something that
Yeah.
alters the game that's on Xbox. It's within it. So that's, I don't know. It's really interesting because it does seem like we'd have to do more research, but it does seem like there is a possibility for vulnerability there, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I don't know. And I think that, I mean, every mod must have some sort of verification process since this is a Bethesda hosted server of mods. But my interesting thought is that, I mean, this is an Xbox One game, so it's not like it's out of the question that this could get an update to be like an Xbox Series X update, because all other Xbox One games get these types of things. So, especially now that Bethesda is owned by Microsoft, I was kind of wondering, like, does Bethesda update Skyrim? Which, I mean, they're notorious for just re-releasing Skyrim, so I don't see why they wouldn't come out with a Series X version of Skyrim. But at the same time, do they need to because of this mod? The mod's not perfect. There's sometimes it drops down to 50, maybe 40 on like really intense dragon fights, but it's kind of weird. If I was Bethesda, I'd kind of sit there and be like, do we even need to do anything, or can we just leave it?
Well, that's the beauty of the modding community, is once you leave it up, I mean, it's open source
Yeah.
effectively. It's open source programming. You're leaving it up to the community to better the experience that they've put out. So I love it. That's the best part about, and I would imagine most PC gamers, that's the thing that they are most passionate about, is that it's a community-based system, where
Mm-hmm.
you get on consoles and you lose that. Actually, that's the one thing that draws me to wanting, whenever there's a PC release, like I think Grand Theft Auto, I was really excited when they years later decided to do a PC release, because I'm like, wow, it's gonna have a modding community now, and like
Yeah.
there's gonna be so many great things that people are gonna be able to do with this that aren't just built into the structure of what was on the consoles. And actually, I hope that, please, Microsoft, with Halo Infinite, I really hope that they really open it up. Like, this is like, I want a modding community, especially on console, and especially that there's like crossplay, and there's going to be released at the same time, and like there's all this Windows side as well as console side, and I don't know. I think there's a lot of opportunity here. So hopefully with Bethesda, we'll see that happen. There's an example.
Yeah, yeah, Halo. I was thinking that exact same thing about Halo Infinite, which I know a couple months ago it came out, or like they talked about how the Windows Store is trying to build a mod support like into the Windows
Oh,
Store for
really?
Windows
That's
games. Yeah, so
awesome.
it's not, it's not far-fetched that Windows games will get it, because I know with Master Chief Collection, it's on Steam and it's on the Windows Store. Steam allows for mods. The Windows Store version I don't think does, but that's a Windows Store limitation because of the file structure and all that stuff. So what I'm hoping is that they can figure that out and allow people to mod Windows Store versions, which I think will help everybody, because then people will just buy off, like, there's no incentive to buy the Steam version, because if I buy the Xbox Store version, now I have it on console and PC, and now Game Pass games can be modded. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, like you're saying, if we could get Halo Infinite, which is going to be cross-platform, it'd be great if I could just develop. And they do this, well, they are so close. Like with Halo 5, you can forge a PC map, but then you can't play Halo 5 on PC, but you can forge Halo 5 on PC and then put it on Xbox. So it'd be great if Halo Infinite you could forge on a computer, give it to Xbox people, and you could mod and give it to Xbox people.
I mean, all the direction seems to be heading this way. It's
I
like
know.
we're not insane, right? Like I feel
No.
like it all seems to be going this direction. We're just like, please stay the course.
I know. Just
Stay
like
the course.
don't move. Just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, because it would be really exciting, and a lot of this aspect, we're not talking about CD Projekt Red, but once you open up to modding, who cares if the game sucks? The community will fix it. And like, and that's what I want. I want more community, and I think that game companies and especially Microsoft sees that, and I think we're headed in that. Hopefully we're headed in that direction.
Yeah, because I mean, yeah, if you just allow for these mods, and my other thing is I don't know the limitations of the mods on Xbox. I know there are, like, I know that there's like Sky Oblivion, which is someone remade Oblivion in the Skyrim engine. Like that's not, I don't even think that's a mod at this point. I don't know how you do that at all, but fucking people are doing it. So in Skyrim or whatever, the Skyrim version of Morrowind, it's crazy. I don't think those will ever come to console, but yeah, it'd be so cool.
It was even when I've never seen this, but you told me that there's battle royale in like people are making Forge.
Yep.
Yeah, I was blown away. Halo 5 Forge battle royales. I was like, how do you even do that? Like, it's not
Halo
even
5.
structure. Oh, sorry, 5. Yeah, did I say 4? 5.
Well, yeah, just Halo 5's Forge in general is just fucking, it's insane. Like, it's so much farther ahead than Halo 4 and Reach were. Like, Halo 4's Forge was like Reach but pretty. And then Halo 5 is just, other than no AI, which everyone's been begging for since Halo 3, just let me spawn some grunts. I think it would be cool. Everyone thinks it'd be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they have like basic scripting in that where like you can say if I hit this object zone, spawn object, and do these very basic things, which it's like Minecraft. If you give smart people basic rule sets, they will find a way to like abuse the shit out of it in a good way.
Yeah.
So yeah, people found a way of like, okay, I can set a timer and then I can have like death zones spawn in so that you get that zone that's shrinking as you play the game, and then you can spawn people in high places and have them drop with no fall damage. Like, yeah, it's genius.
Well, I think this is actually the best thing 343 has that they've ever created was opening it up to the community, and like also just the Forge thing and making sure that the community. It wasn't in 3, was it?
What?
Well, I remember there was a Forge in 3. Yes, there was a Forge in 3. So that they did continue that on. But I think it was more like being able to record stuff, and like it wasn't very good. Was it very good?
I mean, it was, again, it was very what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah. It was very primitive. But again, if you give people, like, that's the nice thing about these things. You give them a rule set and people are like, okay, well, what if I do this? And so people found some crazy ass things to do in Halo 3. And then yeah, Bungie, they improved on Halo 3's Forge drastically with Reach. And then Halo 4's was 343's first Forge, which pretty much was just Reaches, but with some, like, bonuses.
I was trying to give 343 a bone, but it's hard.
Yeah, no, that was all Bungie.
It was all Bungie.
Yeah, they're geniuses over there.
Yeah. No, it's really good, and I'm glad that it's continued on, because I remember the first time in Halo 3 when I saw that, and I was like blown away. Like, I'm like, this is the future. This is it. Like, I just want people to make more maps, because that it kind of died out. Unreal Tournament was the first one that really did that in my eyes well, where they gave it to the community and allowed them to just create whatever they wanted. And well, of course that's not true. There's Quake and all those others, but where it was built into the system. I don't know, like the WADs and all the things like that. I felt like it was still wasn't built in. It wasn't like where I felt like with Unreal Tournament, it was like they had servers and the whole thing was like meant for it.
Yeah.
Let me think of this through. Yeah, I think that's a correct statement now that I think about it more. Because there was definitely modding very early on, but I think it was just. Yeah, it was just being able to manipulate the game code, where I think like games like Unreal Tournament, StarCraft, when it came out, was a big boom to the modding community because it was built into the system itself. Yeah. It was almost like saying, hey, we're accepting you guys. We want you to mod. We're going to make this easy. And there were very few examples of that where, and I think we need more of that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just comes down to like when it's the editor. Like, for especially with StarCraft and then for Unreal. I mean, that's like probably the birthing place of, hey, what if we give out Unreal to other people? And it's like you get to this point where if you put enough resources into an engine editor, you just sit there and go, well, what if we just gave this out? Because once you give it out, it's just, it's an easy pipeline to just give to people. And that was what the Creation Engine did too. And it's funny because Forge turned into that with Halo 3. You had all these maps that Bungie made, and then they're like, hey, look at Forge, you can make your own. And then Halo Reach came out, and they were like, hey, what if we just use Forge ourselves to build Forge maps and call them multiplayer maps? Which, you could say that's lazy, but, it did the job. And then 343 took that with stride in Halo 5 and barely had any maps. And then decided, what if we just have Forge maps? Which, I mean, it's fine, and some of those maps are better maps than the built-in ones, but Forge is kind of like their map editor, I imagine.
Yeah, no, but it's kind of interesting because it almost seems like just the modding community itself has gone from being, I would say, underground a little bit to, I mean, they're like, I would say, Little Big Planet's another one.
Yep.
That really brought it to the average user, where it's like, oh, we can create all this content, and this idea of just being able to create as much content as you want. I don't. I feel like we're in a different place now, and yeah, Forge was a great example where, like, I don't think people really, especially for consoles, it really brought the idea of what the PC had been holding to consoles, and yeah, they just need to keep doing that, because I think that since then, like, no one's really, yeah, I mean, of course, there's now what was it? What's that game engine on PlayStation? Dreams.
Yeah.
There's Dreams. There's a fair amount.
Yeah, well,
so I'm like going back and forth a little bit, because it's like there is and there isn't, but it's like there.
Dreams is just that's the Little Big Planet engine. Like,
oh,
the
was
guys
it?
the
I didn't
guys
know
who
that.
made Little Big Planet made Dreams, I believe. Like, that was their next step.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
It felt that way.
Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure it is.
I mean, the cool thing about Dreams was the VR. I mean, it shined in. I don't know if you ever got the opportunity to PSVR it. It was really cool. Yeah, it was just really quick. Like I don't think anyone's really nailed VR development, and I obviously haven't tried everything. I tried Unreal Engine for a little while with their VR development. It's okay. I don't know. Has it gotten any better? Have you tried it in a long time?
No, I've never sat down to try to make a VR game. I've thought about doing it.
So not just making a VR game, but like they have the capability to develop games with a headset on.
Oh God, no, I've not done that.
I mean, it's not terrible.
That's very interesting.
Because the locality of it, like, you're standing in the world, so like placement of objects and being able to design. There are a lot of, I think, benefits that.
I mean, that's a good. That feels like the only way to develop a VR. Like, you need to seem to have that in VR, because like with normal game development, yeah, you have a PC screen and you can just press the play button, and then you can see it in real time, or you can just move your little camera and be like, oh, this is what it looks like. But I guess with VR, yeah, you need to, like, what does this look like? So that makes sense.
Well, I don't actually. I mean, even not for a VR game, like any game. And I think that Dreams, if you do play it with PSVR, you kind of realize the capabilities, because they did a really good job. I think they improved on the UI, the VR UI UX, the way that you can copy objects, resize objects, move them around. It feels really fluid. They did a really good job. I hope people copy the shit out of their VR interface, because it was really good. Recommend it. The shitty part about Dreams is that it's self-contained and you're never going to be able to publish.
Yeah.
So great, I'm doing this for fun, but yeah, it was amazing. But I think there is, I think, and I've talked to a lot of, designers who have tried and attempted to do VR development, no, it's VR design, not just for regular games, and they really like it. It's very intuitive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And it gets you up and moving, right?
Yeah, you need that as a game developer sometimes.
Yeah. It's not just about donuts and pizza, and sometimes you gotta get up out of your seat.
Yeah, but going back to where all this started, I am enjoying the Series X.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm glad you are. I love it.
Yeah, it's so something that was really, like I said, they just made every little, like, small thing about playing games better. Like, the UI is super fluid, thank God, because my One X was chugging. Quick resume is just like
Amazing.
goddamn Sony, get on this shit. Like, oh my god, like I don't understand how you did not ship with it. I know it probably came late in the game and you probably didn't think about it, but like I hope that they secured a patent to do it on their end because I need it on PlayStation 5. I love my PlayStation 5, but this is the coolest thing ever. And
It's a
then
game changer. It's like I
yeah.
mean, just to take a little longer on it, that's what I tell everybody about. They're like, "Why should I get?" And like, Quick Resume is amazing. Um, it blows me away, like, because it's just you instantly back into your game. I mean, there's slight amount of load, but nothing that you even
Oh,
care about.
it's nothing.
Nothing. And I mean, a lot of the things where we were talking about picking up a game, like if you're doing work and you just want to play for 15 minutes, it solves that problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And I'm imagining it doesn't cost. I just still am like, I just want an engineer to sit me down and explain it because I just don't understand how they do it.
Have you
Like the
hit your limit?
game's not running. No, I have not. I tried it with, I booted up Skyrim, Doom, and Super Lucky's Tale, and I was just switching between them, having fun.
I think
Um,
it's it seems infinite. Like I can't remember the last time I was like, oh yeah, I mean it has to be like 7 or 8 because I don't even notice it.
Yeah, I know it. Like you're right. Like when we tried it, when you brought yours over, it was like there is no limit. But I know there has to be some sort of limit.
Well,
Like
it's even quick resuming after you unplug, which means it's not, it's in what is the stupid RAM?
an SSD.
Volatile?
Well, so
Volatile,
okay,
not
yeah. So
volatile.
so when you said that, I think again, I'm not an engineer on. I'm not a this type of engineer. I'm a software dude. So the only thing I can think of is that what they're doing is since this console has 16 gigs of RAM, there's 200 gigabytes of SSD that is reserved for the operating system, which is how Quick Resume works. I'm assuming that they just take literally every byte of data in the RAM, copy it to the fast ass SSD, and just let it
Yeah.
sit there. And then when you say play my game, it literally just copies it and then like I don't know ties the engine back in. I don't know how
That
the
makes
hell
sense
that.
because it'd be one grab from, and so it'd be you wouldn't even notice.
Yeah, how
It's
they do that,
crazy.
I have no idea. Like it's like I don't know how they achieve it, but that's the
Yeah.
only thing I can think of. And the fact that you unplugged it and it still worked, I think that's why. Is because when you unplug an SSD, you can still it doesn't kill the whole memory. So they have to be saving it in the
Yeah,
SSD. Yeah.
volatile.
Which is also cool because that means it's not losing performance when you have 8, 9 games that are just sitting there. And I think that the other thing, which again, I really want an Xbox person to tell me, it would be really cool if that's how they did it because if they do it that way, that means that they technically don't have a slot. Like it's not like, oh, 5 games and you're out. It's however much RAM is left or however much of that SSD is left. So if you boot up like 10 indie games that all use only about
Oh yeah, that's true.
1 gig of RAM per, that's only like 9 gigs of RAM or 9 gigs of your SSD getting taken up. And then Doom, who uses 8, like it's genius. It's
Yeah.
absolutely fucking genius, and it's magic, and I love it. And I just sit here and I'm just begging PlayStation,
And I'm
please.
sure I'm sure there is like so many tricks happening in the background
Oh
because
yeah.
ideally, you only need to run enough state because you can run threads, right? You only need to run enough current state or whatever state you're in order to allow for a background thread to load what isn't there.
Hmm.
So it's like you could, I mean, you could trick. I don't know. I mean, these are all presumable guesses, but the way that you could trick things is, I can only imagine the tech that's going into this.
Yeah, and I,
Um,
I think that it was like, I I know a couple people were, or a lot of people were talking about it when the thing started, but like, I feel like we just didn't give Microsoft enough credit of how technologically freaking awesome it is. Like they were given a good amount of credit when they got backwards compatibility to work, because I remember when they shipped it, and even Sony was like, "No, backwards compatibility is just not possible. It's two different architectures. It's just not possible." And even Microsoft said it's not possible, but then they fucking found a way. And I remember reading I read an article about how they described it, which of course they're not going to give away all the secrets, so they described it in English, but they were like, we had to trick the 360 game into thinking it was playing on a 360, and then we had to trick the Xbox One into thinking there was an Xbox One game inside of it, and then somehow double trick them into playing it, and that's how it works. And I'm just sitting there like, that's fucking cool. And
yeah.
the thing that's gonna blow my mind, and I haven't tried yet, is I'm gonna boot up an Xbox original game. I think Psychonauts is digital. I'm going to get that, and I'm going to quick resume an original Xbox game at the same time as an Xbox One game. It's going to be freaking awesome.
It sounds like there's like an interpretation layer, like
Yeah.
some way that they're connecting old calls to new calls, like so that it doesn't really know the adapter pattern. Sorry.
You're fine. I
Yeah.
get what you're saying. But yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that the weirdness is that would make sense, but then it's like, how the hell did they get it to work in the sense of now the 360 games have access to the full power of the console? Like, that's difficult as hell to do. I mean, it's difficult enough to just like take your game engine and be like, oh, run it on different hardware.
Yeah.
It's just it's like they invented this invisible 360 that's beefy as fuck, and the 360 game's like, oh, cool. It's so
Well,
weird.
I mean, a lot of the stuff when they transfer all the servers over to Xbox Series X's, uh, it's gonna they still need to have all of the games that are playing currently on the cloud service because they're not gonna all be Xbox Series X games.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna be a quick switch. So I'm sure all of those need to be able to function
Oh yeah, no, they thought
appropriately.
this through, and
Yeah.
the other thing that blew my mind, which we were talking about the uncapped mod of Skyrim, but BioShock on the 360 had, I don't know why, but if you got on the 360 back in the day, there was an option in the settings to uncap your frame rate built in, which is weird because I've never seen another console dev have an uncapped toggle in the settings on a console game, but they had it, and I don't know
Yeah.
how good it ran on 360, but probably ran like shit. But if you just put that game into the Xbox One, which is backwards compatible, and toggle that, the game runs at a flawless 60.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's
Well,
like, damn. Then that is completely a 2K thing. Like they made their engine very smartly on that console to be able to uncap itself, given a stronger power, which gives me the idea that yeah, they're tricking that 360 game into thinking it's on a really strong 360.
well, I think that this all like goes back to Crisis, right? And which is just
Oh yeah.
this idea of making and now Microsoft Flight Simulator, but this idea of making games that are not even capable of being played by the current technology, and
Yeah.
that so like I remember that being the first game that I remember that was like that. Like you
Oh
couldn't,
yeah.
there's nothing that existed that could play it. But I'm sure everybody that was in the game development community was like, maybe we should future-proof everything because yeah, technology of course is always going to get better, and we always want our game to look better on the better,
Yeah.
tech. So I'm sure this has been going on since then. But it's really because I guess, well, I wonder if there is a drawback because by optimizing to the current technology that especially for console development, um, does that mean that you're bound to that hardware and you can't know, yeah, like it's harder for you to now future proof your game?
Well,
Maybe
yeah,
not.
I think it depends on the dev because, yeah, some devs, especially on like exclusive titles, they're gonna use that console and they're gonna use all the tricks in the book to get that game to run better. Which, that is why sometimes, yeah, backwards compatibility can be difficult. And I think we saw that with like Sony. They instead of making an emulator, which would have cost them millions of dollars in R&D, which Microsoft chose to do, so good for them. They went with the hardware approach, which is downclocking
Yeah.
their processor to just be like, you're on a PS4 now, or you're on a Pro now. And then I think with the Pro version, that's when you get a little bit of like that uncapped, like, oh, now it's uncapped. Or like they were smart with their whole checkerboarding. So like with the
Yeah, but how does
resolution, they checkerboarded, so now they don't have to checkerboard as much.
Do you know that works because the architecture of the actual processor is going to be different? And like, if you are really trying to adhere to the hardware that you have, it's like, I see. I still
Well,
don't
for the
understand how that.
PS5, it's the same architecture as the 4. It's
Oh, is it?
x86,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So which yeah, and same with Xbox One, they're all PCs. The issue was that with PS3, they were like, well, this is a cell architecture, which is dog shit, and this is not, so this is impossible. And Xbox said it was impossible because its power PC was the 360.
Yeah.
Which is funny because a lot of people are like, well, if that's impossible, why don't you make the original Xbox backwards compatible? Because the original Xbox was x86, which they eventually did.
Well, I know a lot of companies will do like there's different computing paths. Like you'll have multiple computing paths. So basically, the path at which your game goes through the code, and you'll have, and this is usually on PC so that they can have different optimizations for different graphics cards, different APIs, so that they can be as fast and also as capable on different hardware as possible. I don't know if that's true on console, if they need to worry about that, and especially for future proofing their game. Like maybe they have multiple paths through the code. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, so the thing that came to mind when talking about this was back in there was an interview by one of the Naughty Dog devs about when they were making Crash 1 on the PS1. And they were like, well, we wanted the game to run at a good like we wanted the game to really push the boundaries of this console. And since it was only on one console, they had the luxury of like really making sure that they're using every ounce. So much so that they actually broke their agreement with Sony and they actually stole, I think they stole RAM from the like from the console itself just to get more polys on screen, which technically was not allowed, but they did it anyways. And I don't think they told anybody. So like those types of optimizations in which there's no other piece of hardware that can do it, I think those are the cases where you're kind of stuck. And I think that's what we're seeing with Halo 5, which they still haven't said is coming to PC. And I don't think we're ever going to see Halo 5 on PC because I think it's just not, I just don't think it's going to be possible. I think that 343 did a lot of stuff to make sure that game ran at 60 frames per second that they can't undo those types of optimizations without breaking parts of the engine. And I think they don't have to do that with the Master Chief Collection because I think they just developed it a little differently. Because the Xbox One is x86, so technically Halo 5 should run on PC, but I don't know.
Well, it's also just the the graphics APIs and like there's a lot of specifics that allow you, and this is kind of why this is one of the arguments for console gaming is the idea that we can get highly optimized games for the hardware because it's the same hardware across the board. But now, I mean, like now with games trying to upgrade to the new consoles and like utilizing these super sampling things and like all this these algorithms that are trying to help them get on the console easier, are those optimizations hurting them? And no one really talks about this, so it's kind of hard to fully understand it. But I would imagine because they're kind of bounding themselves to a hardware set that no longer exists. So I don't know.
I think so. And I think, again, this is total speculation, but I think Spider-Man on PS4 is a good example of Spider-Man on PS4 looked incredible and ran very smoothly at 30, but still, it was freaking phenomenal. And I think that Insomniac's a very talented developer, and I think that they did a lot of things saying this is only on PS4, so we can make some assumptions here. And I think that instead of the game is backwards compatible, but they have a definitive edition which runs better, drastically better. And I think that's because they were like, okay, we kind of have to take a step back and then redo those optimizations for PS5 or generalize those optimizations so that it can run on upscaled hardware.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But I think you're right. Some of those optimizations probably do.
And that's the beauty of being able to software emulate, because you can mimic those APIs, you can mimic those optimizations, and I think that's honestly probably a reason that Xbox chose that way is because yes, it might take a little bit of work, but you can get it to run exactly the same. Where I know you're saying just downclocking, and maybe but then does that force PlayStation to keep the hardware that structure that they have, and they have done a lot of changes to their hardware, but have they had to make concessions in order to keep this backwards compatibility? And
yeah, I'm sure that they did. Like, I'm sure that their chip cost them more money. I'm sure it did, because they had to have these downclock options where Xbox was like, we don't downclock ever. There's no point because we just can max it out. And they rather took the cost on their emulator, which I think is a way better option because, like you said, they can get it to run exactly like it did, but they can also have their interpretation layer, which is, hey, why don't we just shove HDR into this 15-year-old game? And then it just worked.
Yeah, the interpretation layer is definitely, a route. We see that now with Apple.
Yeah.
Which surprisingly works really good on the M chips.
Oh my God, I cannot believe the fucking benchmarks those M1 chips are getting. The battery life, we all knew that was going to happen. But I think everybody was like, okay, cool, you have more battery life, so this thing's not going to... Like, it didn't seem like what they were saying was going to happen, but they somehow managed to get a more powerful piece of hardware out that has way better battery life than anything else.
Yeah, and it really... the or the translation stuff. What is it called? What's the name of it?
ARM?
No, not the
I don't know where you're going.
the program that translates it.
Oh, it's not Metal. That's their graphics API.
No, that's a graphics API. Anyways,
shit. Oh, is it Rosetta?
Yes, Rosetta. Thank you. They stole the language.
Yeah, how dare they? Those bastards steal
the language company. Yeah. But yeah, Rosetta. It's amazing that even the fact that you're able to run Windows on it, and they've been able to show that Windows runs better for the M version.
Are you serious?
Yes.
You can run Windows on that ARM chip.
You can run because there's the Surface Pro or the Surface X. Sorry.
Oh
shit. The Surface X is a ARM operating version of Windows, and the ARM operating version running on the M chip runs phenomenal, better, faster, which makes them look like idiots. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't see that. It was all over the news. Yeah,
I didn't know, but that leave it to Apple to make Microsoft look like a fucking idiot.
They look like fucking idiots because they put it out earlier. This is their second version of it, and I don't know. They just
let's be honest. This is what Apple. I'm looking at their history. This isn't how they used to operate, but ever since like mid 2000s, this is how Apple works. They do a lot of innovation and they invent their own things, but a lot of the time they wait. They just wait for new tech. They wait for people to try it and fail, and then they sit on it, and they're a little bit behind the wheel. But every time they do something, it's better.
They grab that alley-oop and dunk.
Yeah, every time. They're fucking dunking on everybody, and it comes
alley-oop it.
Yeah, they've been doing that to Android for so long, and now their Android and them are just kind of, it's in a weird point, but everyone was like, well, Android has this, or Android's had this for years, and I'm like, yeah, they have, but Apple somehow managed to make it just like flawless. Like their widgets is a good example of Android's has widgets for fucking probably a decade now, and they work and they're fine, but they ain't amazing. Like sometimes the widgets are laggy, sometimes the widgets don't look right and whatever. Yeah. And Apple took the time, and now they have widgets and they all look like they fit together. They work great, and again, it's just what they do. Which whatever. Now they're doing it with the fucking Surface.
They're having a revolution with this because even everyone's a little jealous on because I'm definitely not an Apple boy, and I'm jealous. I was thinking of getting their products, because it's just
and they've been doing
unbelievable reviews.
Yeah, like their iPads are outperforming so many laptops, and even their last iPad Pro before this new M1 chip was at par and benchmarks with their MacBook Air, and I'm just sitting there like, holy fuck. Yeah. This is insane. And now that they're going to do that, and then I can't even imagine how these are on their MacBooks. When they shove an M chip inside of a desktop station.
Oh, yeah.
Holy fuck. Well, oh my God.
What was that like 10,000? I know we're getting late, but there wasn't that like a $10,000 desktop that they put out? Some fucking tarded shit like that.
Yeah. It's weird. I read that. I was reading this article or something where since Apple positions themselves as a luxury brand, I don't know what type of marketing it is, but when you put yourself in that gate, you don't have to, but you have this opportunity to make outlandishly expensive shit, and you don't need to make a profit off of it, but it's kind of just a marketing peel.
Oh, yeah.
Like watch companies do this all the time. It's like, it's a $50,000 watch, and you're like, wow, that's absurd. Then the rich guy's like, I need that shit. So yeah, they made this expensive ass computer, and then I think the wheels for it were like $1,000.
Yeah.
And then they made a monitor, and then the stand was $1,000, and I'm like, yeah, that's absurd. Then there's some people who are like, yeah, well, fuck it.
Well, you know what it is? Like what's happening, and I've heard this argument is if you're the kid that comes to school with an Android, you're the poor kid.
Yeah, you are.
You're the poor kid. It's like with your Galaxy Note, you're like, oh, you got a Galaxy Note? Boo, poor kid.
Apple's been shoving this poor kid shit. It's pretty. Like my favorite thing is when you use iMessage on an iPhone, it's blue if you message people with an iPhone, but it's green if they're Android. So it's like that joke of like, oh, you are green? Get the fuck out of here, you.
Well, you know what happens bubble. when you like heart a thing for me. So when you heart a message, it says in text, this message has been hearted, and like in a big bold text thing, because they never made equivalent. That's the
Well,
only
you-
way they're able to interpret it. So yeah,
That's
poor kid
interesting.
poor kid gets.
So, I mean, it's
down again.
interesting because like with iMessage, it's like yeah, it's their own protocol. They're not using SMS, so like SMS is there's an example of this, but like SMS is the outsourced version, so everyone has to abide by it, like the bare minimum SMS, and then iMessage is just built on top of that. So it must be that iMessage, yeah, they send those text messages to other iMessages, and then they just interpret it like a little layer. But then that's weird. I didn't know that. I accidentally.
Yeah.
Usually, I don't heart things if you're a green message. I don't do that, but I guess I just forget sometimes.
It's so bad. It's like when people start to heart everything, it's like you get all these like extra messages. And it's like, oh my god, I'm the poor kid. It's like, no.
I know it's really bad. Like I don't feel good about it, but like yeah, it's how Apple's been,
Yeah,
man. You're the fucking
Hey,
poor
well,
kid.
no, what's up? We lost you, buddy. Nope. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, we lost you for a second there.
Oh well, then it's probably a good place to stop.
That's okay. We're getting technical difficulties at the last minute.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Last minute
That's-
talk. Android is poor people apparently.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. $1,000 phones are for the poor kids.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks to everybody for listening, and we will continue to do this on Mondays at 8 West Central Time. What is our time zone?
We're West Coast time.
Yeah,
Pacific
West Coast
time.
Pacific.
Yeah.
Thank. Pacific time. All right. Thanks, everybody.